SPN 1180 FMI 0 engine coolant temperature sensor 1 circuit. Data valid but below normal operational range. Most severe level description SPN 1180 refers to engine exhaust gas recirculation. EGR, differential pressure and FMI 0 indicates that the data is valid but below normal operational range. This means that the engine SEGR system is experiencing a lower than expected differential pressure between the inlet and outlet of the EGR cooler. This can be caused by a clogged EGR cooler or a malfunctioning EGR valve. The engine may experience a loss of power, increased emissions, or decreased fuel efficiency. It is recommended to have the EGR system inspected and repaired by a qualified technician. Notes and details SPN 1180 and FMI 0 is a diagnostic trouble code that indicates an engine oil pressure data valid but below normal operational range. This means that the engine oil pressure is lower than the minimum acceptable level. Possible causes of this code include low engine oil level, a faulty oil pressure sensor, a clogged oil filter, a malfunctioning oil pump, or a damaged oil pressure relief valve. It is important to address this issue promptly as continued operation of the vehicle with low oil pressure can cause severe engine damage. A qualified technician should diagnose and repair the underlying issue causing this code. System and components SPN 1180 and FMI 0 are related to engine coolant temperature. Here are the possible system and components that may be related to this fault code. Engine coolant temperature sensor engine control module. ECM. Wiring and connectors between the engine coolant temperature sensor and the ECM engine coolant level engine coolant quality, concentration and type. Radiator and cooling system components, e.g. hoses, water pump, thermostat, radiator fan. Engine. Oil cooler, if equipped. Exhaust gas recirculation, EGR, cooler, if equipped. Diagnostics SPN 1180 and FMI 0 are related to engine oil pressure. FMI 0 means that the engine oil pressure is too low, indicating a potential problem with the engine oil pump, oil filter, or oil pressure sensor. Here are some possible diagnostics. 1. Check the engine oil level and condition. Low oil level or dirty oil can cause low oil pressure. If the oil level is low, add the recommended oil to the engine. 2. Inspect the oil filter. A clogged oil filter can restrict oil flow and cause low oil pressure. Replace the oil filter if it is dirty or clogged. 3. Check the oil pressure sensor. The oil pressure sensor measures the engine oil pressure and sends the signal to the engine control module, ECM. A faulty sensor can send incorrect signals to the ECM, causing low oil pressure. Use a multimeter to test the oil pressure sensor, S resistance and voltage. Replace the sensor if it is faulty. 4. Inspect the oil pump. The oil pump is responsible for circulating oil through the engine. A malfunctioning oil pump can cause low oil pressure. Remove the oil pump and inspect it for damage or wear. Replace the oil pump if it is faulty. 5. Check for leaks. Oil leaks can cause low oil pressure. Inspect the engine for oil leaks and repair them as necessary. If none of these diagnostics solve the problem, it may be necessary to take the vehicle to a qualified mechanic for further inspection and repair. Troubleshooting. How to fix SPN 1180 and FMI 0 are diagnostic trouble codes that indicate a fault in the engine coolant temperature sensor circuit. This fault code is commonly found in heavy-duty diesel engines, such as those used in commercial trucks and buses. The engine coolant temperature sensor is responsible for measuring the temperature of the engine coolant and sending this information to the engine control module, ECM. The ECM uses this information to adjust fuel injection timing, ignition timing, and other engine parameters to optimize performance and reduce emissions. When the ECM detects a fault in the engine coolant temperature sensor circuit, it will set a diagnostic trouble code, DTC, and illuminate the check engine light, cell, on the dashboard. This indicates that there is a problem with the engine coolant temperature sensor circuit and that it needs to be repaired. Here are the steps to fix SPN 1180 and FMI 0. Step 1. Check the engine coolant temperature sensor. Time equals 400 ms, greater than the first step in fixing SPN 1180 and FMI 0 is to check the engine coolant temperature sensor. This sensor is typically located on the engine block or cylinder head and is connected to the wiring harness with a connector. Disconnect the connector from the engine coolant temperature sensor and use a digital multimeter to check the resistance of the sensor. The resistance should change as the temperature of the engine coolant changes. If the resistance is out of range, replace the engine coolant temperature sensor. Step 2. Check the wiring harness if the engine coolant temperature sensor is working properly. The next step is to check the wiring harness. Inspect the wiring harness for any damage, corrosion, or loose connections. Repair or replace any damaged wiring or connectors. Step 3. Check the ECM if the engine coolant temperature sensor and wiring harness are both in good condition. The problem may be with the ECM. Use a diagnostic scan tool to check for any ECM fault codes related to the engine coolant temperature sensor circuit. If there are no fault codes, check the ECM power and ground connections. If the ECM is faulty, it will need to be replaced or repaired by a qualified technician. Step 4. Clear the fault code after fixing the problem with the engine coolant temperature sensor circuit. Use a diagnostic scan tool to clear the fault code from the ECM memory. This will turn off the check engine light on the dashboard. Time equals 400 ms, greater than. In conclusion, SPN 1180 and FMI 0 indicate a fault in the engine coolant temperature sensor circuit. To fix this problem, check the engine coolant temperature sensor, wiring harness, and ECM. Repair or replace any faulty components and clear the fault code from the ECM memory. If you are not confident in performing these steps, it is recommended to seek the assistance of a qualified technician. Symptoms and causes. SPN 1180 and FMI 0 are diagnostic trouble codes, DTCs, that are related to engine oil pressure. Here are the possible causes and symptoms. Causes: low engine oil level or pressure, faulty oil pressure sensor, clogged oil passages or filters, damaged oil pump, faulty engine control module. ECM. Symptoms: illuminated check engine light, low oil pressure warning light or message. Time equals 400 ms, greater than. Engine knocking or ticking, noise, loss of engine power or performance, engine stalling or not starting. It is important to address SPN 1180 and FMI 0 as soon as possible to prevent further damage to the engine. Related codes. Time equals 400 ms, greater than. SPN 1180 and FMI 0 is related to engine exhaust gas recirculation, EGR, differential pressure. Data valid but above normal operational range, most severe level. Other related codes for SPN 1180 are FMI 1. Data valid but below normal operational range, least severe. Level. FMI 2. Data erratic, intermittent, or incorrect, most severe level. FMI 3. Voltage above normal, or shorted to high source. FMI 4. Voltage below normal, or shorted to low source. FMI 5. Current below normal or open circuit. FMI 6. Current above normal or grounded circuit. FMI 7. Mechanical system not responding or out of adjustment. FMI 8. Abnormal frequency or pulse width or period. It's important to note that the severity level of the code can vary depending on the make and model of the vehicle. Parts needed. SPN 1180 and FMI 0 indicates an engine oil pressure issue. Here is a list of parts and tools that may be needed to diagnose and repair the issue. Parts: engine oil pressure sensor, engine oil pressure gauge, engine oil filter, engine oil pump tools, OBD2 scanner, multimeter, oil pressure gauge, oil pressure test kit, socket set, torque wrench. Time equals 400 ms, greater than. Oil filter wrench, oil drain pan, funnel. Note: the specific parts and tools needed may vary depending on the make and model of the vehicle. It is recommended to consult the vehicle's service manual for accurate information.